Hey, this is Drew Clavin at the Daily Wire. I wanted to talk about a book I'm reading, a novel I'm reading by a French author, a guy named Michel Houellebecq. I can't even say how to spell it, it's so complicated. But the novel is called Submission. And no, it is not a sequel to 50 Shades of Grey, which I thought it was when I ordered it, and I'm very disappointed. But no, seriously, it is a very serious novel by a one of the most provocative writers alive, one of the most provocative novelists alive. It's about the Muslim takeover of France, and submission obviously being the translation of Islam. And the guy I've read, this is the third novel by Houellebecq I've read, and he is there's something so realistic about the way he writes. He kind of writes the same story every time. He writes the story about a French guy who is absolutely dissolute. And if you see pictures of Houellebecq, you know why he writes about a dissolute guy. But he's a dissolute French guy, smokes, sleeps with everything in sight, and then suddenly wakes up to find that Muslims are essentially taking over Europe and destroying Europe. And there's something about the way he does this that is so realistic and so alert. And the reason I wanted to talk about it, because I wanted to compare it to some of the American stuff I've been seeing and how light it is and how unattached it is to reality. I mean, I'm always complaining. You know, it's not easy to publish a book like this in France, by the way. My novel, Empire of Lies, I had a big French contract. They paid me for the contract, and then they canceled the book because they were afraid of what I said about Islam in it. They still had to pay me, but they canceled the book. So it's not easy to get past the censors in France. And Houellebecq does it because he's just so powerful and provocative. They're kind of expecting it from him. But here's the thing. This week I also went to see the movie American Assassin, and I was really excited to see it because it's by Vince Flynn. Vince Flynn, terrific international thriller writer and an obvious conservative, especially when it came to questions of fighting the bad guys and fighting the Islamists and all this. And the thing about American Assassin was it's the guy who was credited as the chief screenwriter on it was the guy who was the chief screenwriter on an adaptation of one of my books, True Crime. And True Crime is about a white guy who's on death row, possibly because he has been railroaded due to political correctness. And when I sat down with the writer of the screenplay, he said, we had to make a few changes. And I said, like what? Well, we made him a black guy. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because it completely wrong foots the entire sense of the book. So now in American Assassin, they write this book, and it does have evil Islamists in it, but it has all this dialogue suggesting, and I know this dialogue doesn't come from the novel because the novel takes place at a different time. They have all this dialogue suggesting that there are moderates in Iran and the Obama's Iran deal is such a good thing, a wonderful thing, but then there are the kind of bad guys in Iran, and that's who we're fighting, but we're not fighting the good guys in Iran. Complete fantasy. I mean, a complete political fantasy. And I just can't help thinking there is something about the left-wing monopoly on the arts that makes our arts light. And this is one of the reasons I'm always complaining about, superhero movies. It's not that I don't like superhero movies. I saw Logan. I loved Logan. And I thought Doctor Strange, is that what it was called? Doctor Strange? I thought that was a good one, There are just so many of them. And I sometimes suspect that the reason we are addicted to superhero movies is that we never have to talk about who the real villains are. Because real villains present a problem. Real villains are real people. They have real philosophies. They change the way we think about religion, about the way we criticize philosophy. Nobody wants to attack other people's religions. We know that, there's been religious oppression for centuries. We don't want to do it. So we want to kind of empty all real content out of American art. And I think that's why when I read a book like Submission, this French novel, it suddenly has this bite of reality that is so intense that it's like fascinating. It's like watching a car accident in a way that you just can't take your eyes away from so much reality. That's what the arts are for me. That's when they get great, and that's when they really are important. So if you want to take a look at this novel, it is a serious novel, but very rich and deep. Submission by Michel. I think I've got his name right, Michel Houellebecq. By the way, I'm sure you saw the conversation with Ben Shapiro and the beautiful Alicia Krause that we did last month. This month, it's going to be me, October 17th on Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. I will be here to answer your questions. You've got to be a subscriber. You can watch, no matter who you are, it's on Facebook Live, right? It's on Facebook Live and the Daily Wire. But If you want to ask questions, you got to be a subscriber. Come to thedailywire.com. Go to the place where it says the conversation. You can just write in your questions. I answer them just like my mailbag. Answers guaranteed 100% correct. Will change your life every now and again for the better.